Today has potential. Yes, today has great potential as it is a CPI day, meaning that we do have a nice catalyst in the background to potentially expedite an actual break here for Bitcoin. And we're going over exactly what to expect, the big numbers to be aware of, and also some statistical setups. In fact, following up first on the MetaSignal setup over here, which did fire off just a couple days ago at $107,561.20, by the way, as well. And the target number one is actually 111,170, getting pretty damn close there on yesterday's rally, or was it yesterday's rally or Monday's rally? I am losing time because I am in a massive stupor of painkiller drugs, which is kind of fun, but also not not so much fun when you start to get quite dizzy. Anyways, yes, back on topic here. So target number one is $111,170, effectively a new all-time high for Bitcoin, and that does have a probability of just over 70.5%, as you can see right here. Target number one, with an average time taken of about 8 bars, which I believe that we are much further far out from that particular number at this point. Target number two, however, is, what I would consider significantly new all-time highs at $117,000, and target number three is just over $120,000. Those probabilities for those targets are respectively just under 46% for target number two and just under 37.5% for target number three. So we do have the setups in the background for Bitcoin to potentially continue here, and those would be the areas of interest, I suppose, if Bitcoin does indeed continue, and the bars, or essentially the time associated with that for target number two and target number three, is 25 and 42 respectively. So, that puts us a couple more days out, I do believe, from that actual entry. And by the way, if you are looking for setups like this, check out MetaSignals. There's a link in the description below. You can get their signals for free, many of them, and they even have a pretty crazy promotion going on right now. In fact, I should probably tell you about it, because you can get 1,000 order tokens for free, which is the exchange token for the What exchange, which is a decentralized exchange. And you can also get, I believe, 50% off. Yeah, 50% off of their, 50% off of all of their signals for 30 days with the code CROWN in all capitals. Anyways, enough shilling right there, but that is indeed there for you, and you can get the full suite of their signals with that code and setup. Anyways, moving on from there, I want to get into the big signal, the real signal. Fuck this MetaSignal shit. Here's the real one. It's the moons. The moons have fired off again. It is indeed a bull moon or a full moon, typically the one that produces some upside price action. And if we were to just play out a very, very simple strategy here, opening along when the full moon occurs and then closing that long 2 weeks later when the other one occurs, whatever the fuck it's called, we see these results here over the past 10 or so years. So just over half of the time, these trades did close positively, or a little bit more than that, I guess, 55.5% with a positive close rate. But the profit factor is 1.5, so we do have a nice up and to the right equity curve right here. As always, I like to go into the trade analysis and get a little bit more details on these using the Quant Prime service, which, by the way, we also have on sale going on, but maybe we talk about that a little bit later. And the average winning trade returned about 13.5%. The average losing trade losing about 8.25%. So let's put these numbers on the screen and see what it would essentially correlate with, and then we can also come up with dates for this as well. But in the case of a winner to the upside, 13.5% or so would put Bitcoin where? That would put Bitcoin at about $125,000. That's actually on CME. So let me go over here to spot price action and see what this one would look like. And 13% there is probably going to be actually very, very close, basically $125,000 as well. On the other side, however, shaving off about 8.25% would put Bitcoin where? That'd put Bitcoin effectively back down around these range lows. I do still think that is a potential here, and we'll talk about a trigger for that particular price action to, I suppose, be validated. Of course, it's going to probably take some time, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But ultimately, you can see the sort of confluence between first the upside targets and the MetaSignals targets over here, and then also if Bitcoin does fall to the downside, well, we also have a couple other setups suggesting effectively low $100,000 territory is certainly an area of interest. If you recall from yesterday's video, we went over the 3 EMA versus 21 EMA setup. I won't go through it on this video because it's positive vibes only for the full moon, right? Anyways, these, or at least in the way that this was tested, takes 2 weeks to play out. So we are effectively looking out towards the end of the 3rd week of this month. Let's put a date on that actually, perhaps. Let's see, 14 days puts us where? That puts us, Tuesday, the 24th of June. So kind of looking forward to that. We'll see where we're kind of at before then, and I suspect that today would be a catalyst for especially a break to the upside if that is indeed going to occur. And again, remember that these are averages when we're looking at the data down here. So there's going to be some variance in there. Some are going to be a lot more, some are going to be a lot less. But at the end of the day, if you average them out, those would be the numbers. Anyways, moving on from there, I want to get into the secret chart. The secret chart that really I think is a lot more obvious here and does provide a better directional bias, at least for right now. And then we'll go over the failure condition for Bitcoin very specifically that I'd be looking at as very likely to produce that downside price action. But it's this new chart that we've been bringing out. It's the stablecoin dominance chart. So this is using all of the stablecoins in all of the cryptocurrency land, not just Tether dominance, which I feel like a lot of people are massively focused on, which does hold significance, obviously. But as the market matures and as there's more stablecoins, especially USDC taking market share, I think it's better and more accurate to be looking at the full crypto stablecoin dominance percentage here chart. So in this case, yes, this is very, very likely a chart that wants to move to the downside. And we expect this to play inversely of crypto price action, in particular Bitcoin. Can't really say the same thing about every shitcoin in the world, but the top ones probably move with it as well. Anyways, in the short term, yes, this one does look like it is a lot more likely to break to the downside here than the upside. We continue to see momentum on the higher term timeframes angle to the downside. Here's your weekly, here's your 2-week time frame, and even the monthly is actually traveling up this whole way despite more or less being a range play. So that is a bearish reset, to be fair. But if we go back to that weekly time frame, you can see that it's resting right on the precipice of a potential breakdown. And if this chart breaks down, that's going to be that's essentially your signal that Bitcoin's breaking out, and you're probably going to see those 120 numbers, I suppose, with stops along the way. Obviously, it's going to it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to take some time, obviously, as well. Perhaps even 2 weeks if the moons are something to be concerned with. But yes, you can see it resting right on this price action pivot right here, the extended trend line. And if you do see this one really drag down lower today, and especially close it daily below this region, let's call it 7.5%, that would very likely be good enough for me to say, hey, this thing is ready to actually come down, very likely towards this. Let me draw it a nice little blue box of peace and prosperity here. This territory down here, effectively the lows that we've seen in March of 2024. If you remember, that was the first high for Bitcoin at $74,000, and then again in December and January of 2024 and 2025 respectively, which were effectively those moves into what was it, like 108, 109, which was the prior all-time high. So if we see something like that, I am looking for this chart to come down somewhere around here. Maybe it's a little bit higher, maybe it's a little bit lower, but somewhere in this region right here. And to be honest, that's also where I expect the next major top to occur, and probably even the next macro top to occur. But one thing before the next, and it's going to take some time. And by the way, if and when it actually does get down to this blue box territory, that is not an immediate signal that the market is, done right now. In fact, in these prior cases, the market actually ran to new highs for about a month and a half longer after, finding its way into the blue box. So it's more of a time thing. But if and when Bitcoin does get down around there, you're going to start to hear me talk again about major highs very likely in place, and perhaps even a cycle high as well. But for now, this does favor the downside. It's obviously a downtrend right here, especially on the shorter term timeframes. But I also want to go over one other thing. Oh, I just realized that these damn price action pivots are actually making me a fucking pattern boy. This one actually hitting right there perfectly off of the rising channel. On that intended target. But yes, anyways, back on topic here. If on the other side, you see the stablecoin dominance chart trade back above last Friday's high, which is about 840, 842 if you want to be super exact, then the opposite is happening. The opposite is happening, and we've seen a top on Bitcoin for a very long time. Probably at that point, you've already seen Bitcoin make a pretty decent, step down towards the low $100,000 territory. And at that point, I'd really be open-minded towards things dragging on much further south. I am not necessarily biased towards that. I am still biased towards continuation to the upside, but it can take many shapes and forms, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen exactly from here, exactly today. Although, I wouldn't be complaining if it does. Anyways, on top of that, what also gives me a downside bias here is this is being marked off by the price action pivots as what is effectively a broadening wedge, which do have a higher probability to break out to the downside than the upside. And we can see on the weekly time frame there is a drive of phantom bearish divergence right here as well building. Now, this is not confirmed, as you can see. This one will be confirmed by the end of the week. So effectively anywhere here or lower, that will be baked in. And well, that would be, you might call it bearish. And I suppose we could draw out an intended target for this one as well. Let's just see what it would kind of look like, something like this perhaps. And that would effectively be around these lows, maybe even a little bit lower. I mean, maybe it even does continue. That'd be pretty crazy, but I wouldn't necessarily be biased towards that on the first pass, but that's just me. Anyways, yes. So I've also, we also said earlier, we'll go over a condition just very specific to Bitcoin here that would indicate probably earlier than anything else that we just spoke about, because these are all relative to the higher term timeframes, that Bitcoin is actually failing in the short term, and you should be expecting at least down to like 106 and probably down to like 101, 102 region at some point. And that would just be very, very simply Bitcoin trading below yesterday's low, and especially closing any sort of significant time frame below there. I mean, maybe even a 4-hour could work in this case, but if you want to go by the book, it'd be a daily. But in my opinion, if you even just trade below yesterday's low at 108,350, well, that is probably that. And that effectively was, that was a pullback that we spoke about on yesterday's video. So far, so good. I mean, it is wedging itself up back around this region, and you can see the price action pivot here on the 4-hour time frame accurately getting that low. So effectively, as long as Bitcoin is above that low, it is still in a position of power, and in a position to actually break out in the short term, I suppose. Here again, with the catalyst like CPI coming out later today, I mean, that's kind of a good backdrop to kind of justify a move like that. But the second that it comes back down below here, and especially if you see like a 4-hour closure back down below here, first I'd get ready for a move to about 106, probably bounce there, and then I do think that things would come a little bit further south towards low 100s. But even then, I mean, that's still kind of playing this overall range out. So we shall come back to it tomorrow. Hopefully we have something actually different to be looking at, but you never know in cryptocurrency land. It's boring for like fucking 2 months in a row, and then you get 1 week of action, and then it's boring for another 2 months in a row. It's just the way that it works. Anyways, last things last, saving the sale that we're having for our summer. No, for your summer, for summer, just in general, everyone's summer, everyone gets a summer sale. Everyone gets a summer sale with 20% off with the code SUMMER20 in all capitals. That's again, summer, like literally the season, SUMMER. Did I spell that right? SUMMER. And then the number is 20, all in capitals. And you get 20% off of any one of these programs or services that you see right here, especially the price action pivots indicator and the caretaker's full indicator suite, even the quant prime and the quantum wave bands. You know what? Let's check in on the quantum wave bands. We haven't looked at these in a few videos now. So let's check them out. See what the hourly is doing. This is the one that I like to watch the most. And by the way, you can also, as always, try these out for free for 7 days. Get a feel if it's for you or not for you. I think that's always the best way to kind of check these sort of things. Yeah, actually handled this last move pretty well. Had a nice little scalp right here, opening at 104,800, closing on this high here at 106,400, so not bad. Opened another one recently, I think this was yesterday, at 109, in the profit right now by about $600. I guess we'll see how this one goes, but yeah, the equity curve continues up and to the right. Again, for the people who have been in there, using the quantum wave bands for many months now, or I think there's even people who've been using it for like over a year now, or yeah, actually, yes, there are. You already know how this goes. For the newer people, of course, there's always ebbs and flows, but it's the general direction of the equity curve that we like. And in this case, still living up to its name. So we love that. Anyways, yes, you can try it out for free for 7 days. And then of course, you can also get 20% off if you are interested in such things as well. I should also acknowledge that the Quant Prime service is much more advanced, gives you significantly more customization abilities, but really, like, if you're not an advanced trader, I would say that this is probably not right for you. Anyways, yes, okay, we shall end things on that note. As always, I want to wish everyone the best of best. My face is swollen as hell, but and still quite bloody, so I'm not sure if I should put it on YouTube, but we'll be back again tomorrow. And as always, wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Thursday.